What's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to episode 110 of the Spun Today Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. In this episode, I share my August and September 2018 writing stats. For the uninitiated, that's pretty much just a count of how many days out of the month I actually did some writing. I also share a writing tip that I picked up along the way. I tell you about what I've been reading, and finally read and reflect on some of my free writing, which is located at spuntoday.com/free writing for your viewing and reading pleasure or displeasure, depending on your take on it. Stick around for a bit and we'll get into the episode. If you're new to the podcast and would like to help support, and also happen to be a creative yourself, check out my questionnaire for creatives at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. It consists of 5 open-ended questions aimed at giving you the opportunity to share insights from your craft with us. Imbue us with tips and tricks of your trade. Again, you can find those 5 questions at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. Another cool way to help support is by following me on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Spun Today. And check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/Spun Today. So my writing tip this week comes from the KM Wyland newsletter, which I have referenced in the past and I linked to in the episode notes. This time, it's not an entire or specific article. It's an excerpt that I pulled out of one of her posts that resonated with me and I hope would do the same for you. She said, "As writers, it's our job to craft words into images and emotions. One of the best techniques for accomplishing this alchemy is by adjusting the pacing of sentences and paragraphs." First off, I love the way that she worded that sentence in saying that the way we accomplish this alchemy, quote unquote, using that word alchemy just gives what we do as writers kind of a mystical, magical hue, if you will, which fit perfectly with what she is saying and is very salient advice. To me, realizing that you can adjust what you're saying, not by just the actual words, but more so in how you say it. And that's where adjusting the pacing of sentences and paragraphs comes in. Get to the point of something quicker. If you want to make something seem faster, what's that acronym? KISS, KISS, keep it short and sweet. Remove any and all words that you can while still maintaining the point of the sentence or the paragraph, the point of what you want to get across. If you can remove a word or two and the sentence is still saying the same thing, then you don't need that word or two. Or if you want to dull it out a bit, if you want it to feel like a lagging sentence or a lagging paragraph or a scene where it's purposely slow, elongate it, describe the surroundings more, make the pacing more lengthy. You do things like that by little, I don't want to call them tricks, but little added details and layers to things. Like instead of saying the shoes, say the red strappy shoes that have a smudge by the top left toe. Shit like that. Anyway, that is the tip for the writing tip for this episode, and it is thanks to KM Wyland. Sign up to her newsletter. I linked to it in the episode notes of this episode and recommend you all check it out. Now to what I've been reading. I read, actually, because I finished it, Charlemagne the God's first book. His second book is actually coming out soon, if I'm not mistaken. If it hasn't this month, it's next month or something like that. But his first book, called Black Privilege, subtitled "Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It." And for those of you that don't know, Charlemagne is the co-host along with DJ Envy and Angela Yee of one of my favorite morning shows, The Breakfast Club, on Power 105 here in New York. And it's a nationally syndicated show, so I'm sure that if you're not in New York, you have had the opportunity of listening to it, and also you can see the majority, if not all, of their shows on YouTube. Now, I was a bit skeptical when this book initially came out, and I saw that it was doing well, because I just thought it was, another famous person having a book written and putting their name on it and selling a bunch of copies just on the leverage of their fame. Now, of course, his platform, having the platform that he has, is going to have that boost, that type of backing and boost. But if the book is trash, it would be fleeting. It'll be number one for a week or two, and then level out. This book actually was number one. I want to say, if I remember correctly, maybe like 8 or 9 weeks in a row. It's a New York Times number one bestseller. And it was actually written by Charlemagne and edited by Chris Moreau, which is a producer on the No Speakers Network, podcast network, where Charlemagne has his podcast, which he is co-hosted by Andrew Schultz, called The Brilliant Idiots. So yeah, from the get-go, I was a bit skeptical, and I want to say I was pleasantly surprised and glad that I chose to read it. It's a really good book, and I got a bunch of insight from it. I got some background into like Charlemagne's career path and stuff like that. And I love like background stuff, like behind the scenes type shit. And some really good advice, some really good insightful advice. And I like Charlemagne's point of view on a bunch of things, which is another reason why I wanted to, or I was leaning towards giving the book a shot. And you see that a bit on The Breakfast Club on the show, and his no reservation style of interviewing, where he'll ask anything and everything that's on his mind that most listeners are probably wanting to hear answers to from the guests that they happen to have on any given day. But you see even more of that in his podcast, where he's not as, or rather where he's even more free, because he can say anything and everything that he wants on the podcast, and he does. And also, it's not just hip-hop dependent. So you get to see like different sides and different points of view on a vast array of topics, as well as also like hip-hop talk, naturally, but not just that. So the book is pretty much what I got from it: anecdotes from his life growing up, and just some gems that he picked up along the way and drops in the book. He talks about crazy shit like him dabbling in selling drugs, and then finding out that his dad was as well. One day the house gets raided and both of them go to jail, and just crazy childhood stories like that. Then a sick story of his cousin's wife when he was like 8 years old or 12 years old. I forget how old he was, but it's like 8 or 12. He was definitely a kid. His cousin's wife used to molest him and like make him like touch her tits, and she used to go down on him and stuff like that. Just a bunch of stories like that. Then gets more into like the grinding and working in different radio stations in South Carolina, and working his way to New York. And I believe he had a gig in Jersey at one point, and just pretty much gives you a lot of background to how he grew up and how he got to where he's at now on a nationally syndicated radio show, and the executive producer of various TV shows, the co-host of a successful podcast, popular podcast, and a New York Times best-selling author who is about to come out with his second book. So I told you guys last time when I was telling you guys like my takeaways from reading The Tipping Point and The Obstacle is the Way, I mentioned that I was distracted while listening to those audiobooks, and I didn't get from them what I thought I could, and that I would re-listen. I haven't re-listened yet, but this is the book, Black Privilege, that I started where I had that realization because I started focusing more on listening to this audiobook, which by the way it's also read by Charlemagne, which I like. I like when authors of books read their own books instead of having a hired reader of the book. Kind of adds a layer of authenticity to it, and you get more of a feel of where the author was coming from with what he or she wrote. So I came to the realization of the fact that I may have not gotten as much as I could have from those other books because I was listening while, commuting to work, which is fine. That's, when I still listen to audiobooks now. But I was distracted by simultaneously, clearing emails, going through my emails, responding to text messages and stuff like that. I realized when it was a combination of I was more interested, I guess, in like this book like hooked me in quicker, and but there were times where I did start going through emails like out of habit and stuff, and or like scrolling through Twitter, like shit like that, and while I'm listening to the book. And then I had to like check myself and realize, yo, listen to the book, like focus on it. No email, no Twitter, no Instagram, no text messages, just listen to the book. And I did that, and lo and behold, I got a bunch of like notes on it, a bunch of like little clips that I took. Like I told you guys, you're able to do it in Audible. You're able to clip little segments of audio and add notes to it and just take down notes of stuff that you liked. And I'm just going to share a few of them with you guys today. So, in short, pay attention and focus on what you're reading or listening to. Like, actually schedule it. Like, right now, my like audiobook listening schedule is like I listen to like whenever I want. Obviously, if I want to outside of this parameter, but I force myself to, instead of listening to like an audiobook or clearing listening to a podcast or clearing emails or listening to music or watching like videos or like a show on my phone or something like that while I'm commuting to work, what I do is listen to an audiobook until I get on the train, because I have to take the bus to the train and wait for each. So I listen to an audiobook, and that, good 15-20 minutes a day. Then when I'm on the train, I switch to writing and I start writing. But that, 15-20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, adds up, and you can knock out like a book in a week or two. And it's coming handy. I'm actually on Jordan Peterson's book now, 12 Rules for Life, which is kind of dense, but I will tell you guys about that once I finish that one. So let me drop some of the stuff here that I picked up from Black Privilege. So one thing that Charlemagne said he found helpful throughout his career is heeding the advice of his mom. His mom used to tell him that there's incredible power in experiences that don't seem to pertain to you. And she used to make him read, because his mother was an English teacher. She used to make him read, quote unquote, white books, like Goosebumps and Beverly Clearly and things that not all the kids in his neighborhood were reading. So he says that exploring different experiences that are not your own and not in your comfort zone are key. And as an example, he says, if you're a black woman, read a book about an Asian man. If you're a white guy, read a book about a black girl. And then he goes on to say that uh, hip hop as a culture is bad in this regard, and that it shuns things that are different, which is true. And you could do some learning if you embrace things that are different and dare to explore the unknown. He has some quotes throughout the book, which I thought were pretty cool. Here's one of them. It's destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And that's by William Jennings Bryant. And he has an acronym that he says he lives by called PYP, which is pick your passion, pick your poison, or pick your procrastination. And in essence, the takeaway behind that is you can choose one of those three. You can pick a passion and pursue it. You can pick your poison and get hooked on it, whether it's drugs or women or fucking off or whatever. Or you can pick your procrastination and never getting to do what it is that your passion is because you're busy procrastinating doing other shit in the meantime and putting it off. He says the more you choose to pick your passion in decision making, the better off you'll be and the closer obviously you'll get to your goals. He referenced a story that I completely forgot about. I think it was probably around the time when he was speaking about the books that his mother used to make him read, that I remember reading in elementary school, and we actually did a little class play inside the classroom. Not my elementary school used to have auditorium plays where each class would have to put in a play. I think it was once a week or once a month or something like that. Every class would have to put on a play, and you would go to assembly and watch the play. Which is really cool. It's cool that school did that. Shout out to PS 108 in Queens. But this wasn't one of those things. This was a little, we read the story in class and then we acted it out for 15 minutes probably or something like that. And it was called Stone Soup, and I completely forgot about that story and just remember it. Charlemagne mentioned it in passing, and I was like, oh shit, Stone Soup, I remember that shit, but vaguely. And I just remember being some soldiers that had stones, and that's all they had or something like that. And they had to cross a bridge, and they were hungry, and they decided to make a big feast, and all they had were these stones, and then they decided to make stone soup. If I'm not misremembering it, which I probably am, but based on that, I was thinking, what's the significance of that story? And I'm guessing it's just something along the lines of making something out of nothing. I don't know. Maybe I gotta go back and read that. Stone Soup. He also told the story of when he was a local DJ somewhere in a small radio station, probably in South Carolina, where he still was at this point, I believe. But it's the first story that got picked up and got national ratings because this girl flipped out on him. It was I don't know if she was a reality show star or a porn star or something like that, but her name was Buffy the Butt, and it was this lady that had a lot of plastic surgery done, and he interviewed her, and he told her, or he asked her what she was going to do, and supposedly, according to him, I didn't see the interview, although you could find it online, he asked her candidly what she was planning on doing when her looks faded and when gravity set in, because what she was doing wasn't sustainable long term, and she took offense to this and threw a CD at him and started saying that he's nothing and that he's just a local DJ. And he told her, and I quote, "My mouth is gonna take me further than your butt." And I thought that was pretty funny. Something else that I said that something else that he said that I liked was that you can never, even if the situation blows up in your face, hurt yourself by helping others. No matter how big you are, you can always help the next person. If they don't capitalize on your assistance, that's on them. I thought that was pretty salient advice. He mentions a couple times throughout the book how this like newer generation doesn't appreciate or see opportunity unless there's a paycheck tied to it. And he said that's not a good way of looking at things. That you should be able to see the opportunity past the paycheck, and that sometimes you're gonna have to do things for free to get ahead, which I agree with. He cites an example of an intern that was working on the Breakfast Club and was always there, and then used to go to school after the internship, used to go to school, and then after school used to come back to the radio station to see if there's like anything that he could do, and to a point where it was like kind of annoying. He was like always around type of thing. And when Hurricane Sandy happened here in New York, where if those if you all don't know, there was a Hurricane Sandy here in New York where the city got flooded and there was like a lot of damage. Subways were flooded, a lot of buildings that had like underground areas. Like there's a bar by my job actually that got flooded and like went out of business, and like a lot of businesses like that. And it was just no driving or taking public transportation into the city or anything like that. And the guys from the radio station stayed at a hotel, and this kid wound up sleeping over, and because he didn't like have a hotel in the city, but like the DJs and shit did. So they like walked over to work the next morning. He was there because he decided just to like sleep over, because he figured nobody else would be able to make it into the office, so he just slept in the office and was there to help them the next morning. And he just shows like that. He mentions that as like perseverance, story about like perseverance and hard work and willing to put in the work for something that you want to do, something that you're pursuing, because he wanted to be in that like entertainment business, the intern. And even though he wasn't getting paid, he was going above and beyond. Then when like a permanent position opened up, he was like the first person that they recommended, and then the kid became like an executive producer of another show somewhere else or something like that because of that. So it was like a stepping stone type of thing for him, and it came from that willingness to put in the work, even though you're not getting directly paid right away for it. And that's just like one of the stories like that stood out to me. There's a bunch of others similar to it that I like as well. And the next clip that I jotted down kind of plays into that last point. He says, there are a lot of people that will be ready to take advantage of you and your willingness to value opportunity over money. Who gives a fuck? As long as they're cracking open the door, you're the one that's getting over in the long run. Thought that was pretty dope. Let's see. Got a couple more. Principle number 5. He hasn't broken up into like different principles. Principle number 5 is put the weed in the bag. And this is a reference to Belly, the movie, which I remember seeing once a long time ago. It's like one of those like quote unquote classic hood movies. I gotta check it out again because I don't remember it at all. But he says that there's a scene where these like low level drug dealers are, packing up like nickel and dime bags and talking about like all the shit that they're gonna buy and all the like chains and cars and jewelry and stuff like that. And then they get like snapped on by a higher up that tells them to like shut the fuck up and just learn how to put the weed in the bag first before they start making these like grand plans for things. And he goes on to make the correlation between like that sentiment, which is pretty much, learn your fundamentals first and whatever it is that you're pursuing and then what you're doing, learn your fundamentals, learn how to put in the work and focus on that above all else. But yeah, man, I thought it was a pretty good book. I really enjoyed it. I will link to it in the episode notes for you guys to check it out as well if you're interested. And let me know what you think if you do. Alrighty, my writing numbers for the month of August 2018. Drumroll, please. Is 83.9% of the days. I wrote 26 out of the 31 days. My writing count for September 2018. Drumroll, please. As you can see, I'm happy with my performance. Still writing more than I was before, actually, while having a baby. A 3-month-old who's doing great, by the way. 80% of the days. I wrote 24 out of the 30 days out of the month of September. And most of those days I'm writing and working on my novel that I've mentioned to you guys a bunch of times already, or stuff like this, these free writing pieces that I'm about to read to you. Now, my last episode 109, the Random Rant episode, which is the episode right before this one, because this one is 110. So it makes chronological sense that they're numbered that way. I mentioned a stand-up special by Drew Michael, and that I enjoyed it so much that it triggered me to write 2 different free writing posts. And those are the 2 that I thought were apropos to share with you guys today. In the very next free writing session episode after the mention of Drew Michael special in episode 109. Anyway, both posts, if you guys want to check them out, can be found at spuntoday.com/free writing. And they were both posted on the website on October 16th, 2018, which is the day that I'm recording this podcast. Actually, it's just past midnight now, so it's October 17th, 2018. Shout out to Eminem. Happy birthday, Eminem. But again, you can find these posted on spuntoday.com/free writing. The first one up that I'm going to read is called Drew Michael stand-up comedy. And this is one of the ones where a specific quote triggered me to free write a little bit. And here's the quote. You ever think you're a person, but you're actually an amalgamation of projections you've absorbed over 32 years? That is brutal. End quote. So to that, I wrote, in his 1-hour special, Drew Michael touches on the difficulty of having to discern between actually feeling a certain way versus justifying an insecurity. Thought-provoking, isn't it? I mean, who are we really? A collection of influence. Whether it be nature or nurture, that amalgamation of projections we've absorbed is what we are. I guess at first it's a daunting thought because I want to feel and believe that I'm something more sturdy, more reliable. But I'm actually a continuously evolving thing. We all are. And how we choose to evolve is informed by the influences we take in. It's not as big a mind fuck that I once thought it would be. The fact is that we're all evolving, albeit in various directions. Some are just more grounded in knowing what that evolution entails. Alright, so I chose to write this obviously because that piece or that quote was very much so food for thought for me. Made me think about things that I believe, and it could be, trivial things or serious things. It could be anything that you think, that you believe, that you feel. It's like, do you really feel and believe these things? And what is really feeling and believing these things? Or are you just insecure about the thing and you're just in this constant state of justifying that insecurity? And that's why, it kind of, if that's the case, how would you know the difference between that and no, I really do feel this. I really do believe this thing. Like, that seems like such a very fine line that there must be overlap in both ways. Like, there must be things that you really feel strongly about, that you really do, and that you really do believe, and on the flip side, stuff that you're just justifying, and you're probably on both sides of the fence some of the time. But yeah, I just thought that to be really interesting. I hadn't heard it put quite like that before. I think the part of having this experience feel a bit daunting because you want to feel more sturdy and more reliable makes sense, and that has to do with like wanting control or wanting to be able to understand and wrap your head around things. But the realization of realizing that we are a continuously evolving thing, and by we I mean, us as human beings, us as people, but a person growing and learning and evolving, that's okay. But I definitely recognize how it could be unsettling when you are in the mind frame of looking for that reliable sturdiness that comes with controlling shit around you and just things in general. But it makes complete logical sense, and like I said there, towards the end, it's not as big a mind fuck that I once thought it would be. Realizing that it's not a static thing, it's a growth and evolving thing. Some people, not including myself, are more grounded in knowing what that evolution entails. And that post is available once again at spuntoday.com/free writing. Next, and not least, but it is the last one that I am reading for you fine folks today, is the other post that I wrote on that day after watching Drew Michael's special. And this one is also on the website, posted on October 16th, 2018. And it's titled, I Think I Can Express Myself That Way. I think I can express myself that way. And I wrote, we all, open parentheses, assuming every single person ever is motivated in the same way, close parentheses, just want to express ourselves. So we all just want to express ourselves. That's why we gravitate towards the mediums that we do. Not as consumers necessarily, although that's absolutely one side of it, but as expressors, sharers. We see something and think, quote, I think I can express myself that way, end quote. And that was a quote from Drew Michael from his special. Then I continued to say, that's a pretty dope revelation I just had, triggered by watching the HBO extra content feature, Meet Drew Michael. It's why I gravitate towards writing and podcasting. I think I can express myself via those mediums. Interesting. And I wrote that on Sunday, September 9th, 2018 at 12:13 p.m. right after watching the special. Yo, this episode has become a fucking Drew Michael HBO commercial. HBO, hook it up with a sponsorship. So yeah, I thought, so again, I like behind the scenes shit. So whenever I watch a show or anything like that, HBO is really good with this, with the extras that they have. Like they have like really good directors cut things, and just like sit downs with the writers, or they let you see how the cinematography is worked on a show like Insecure, for example, which just had a dope season 3, which I'll get into probably in the next episode, the next random rant episode. And the stand up is no exception. There was like a little mini interview in the extra content features called Meet Drew Michael, and he kind of gives you a peek behind the curtain of who he is and why he chose to become a comedian and why he does what he does. Talks a little about the process of putting together this unique stand-up show, which was recorded without an audience, and just a bit of his experience, his life experience. And, you know, it's only a couple minutes long, so it's not like a very deep dive type of thing, but that really resonated with me when he says that we see something, whether it be a movie or a show or a singer or something that like motivates us, and we think to ourselves, I think I can express myself that way. When he said that, it's like I made the connection right away with writing and podcasting. Like that's the way I think I can express myself. And then you take that a step further, and it's like, yeah, we do, or at least I do, like want to express myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the best speaker, which you can tell by listening to this podcast with my mumbling ass. But I'm not the best like conversationalist or like on the spot type of like dialogue person, I guess. And that probably comes from like insecurity and also overanalyzing and thinking about every single word that I want to say in a certain way before I say it, type of thing. And then before I know it, the moment passes and the conversation is done. You know what I mean? Like that type of shit. But with writing, it's kind of more solitary. It's kind of more alone with your thoughts. It's kind of more take 10 minutes to write one sentence if you feel like it, until you get it right, until you feel it's right, until you feel you got to express yourself. And the same with podcasting too. Like while I record this podcast, I speak and pause it and think about what I'm going to say sometimes. And sometimes it can just go off for like 10 minutes at a time, continuously nonstop, like type of thing. And sometimes I stop and think about what I'm going to say next. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of sort of had that freedom with these two mediums to be able to express yourself. And yeah, that's definitely why I gravitate towards these mediums. So him mentioning that made me kind of have that mini epiphany of, oh shit, I do that. Maybe other people do that too with the stuff that they're into. Like maybe that is the motivation behind, you know, painting, because the painter feels that that's the way that they can express themselves. Or rapper or poet or a singer or a carpenter or an architect or a business mogul or a chef. Anybody who's into anything. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the motivation why they're into that thing. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, folks, that's the episode. That is episode 110 of the Spun Today Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Stick around, listen to some tunes in the background. The song that I chose for this episode is, I don't know yet because I haven't chosen it yet, but I will in post-production, and you guys can enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, you can find a link to the song in the episode notes of this episode, and you can find the link to every single song that I ever play on the podcast in the episode notes of any previous back catalog episodes of the Spun Today Podcast. So if you're ever like, damn, Tony has impeccable taste in music, where does he find this stuff? What song is that? You can just scroll down to the episode notes of the podcast and go to where it says outro song, and boom, there you go.